Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Yesterday we saw how Magnus Carlsen managed to win another great game with the white pieces, and today he was up with the black pieces against Parham Maghsoodloo. Now Parham is a very strong player, he's rated above 2700 and he's also very dangerous, and I believe in Hikaru's chat they even have a bit of a meme that whenever Hikaru misses a move everyone says, well, Parham would have easily seen this. So he's clearly a very tough opponent. So let's see how the game went. Parham opened up with d4, knight f6 by Magnus, c4, e6. So Magnus is hinting at that he wants to play the Nimbus or Indian defense after knight c3, with the move bishop b4. But black can actually also just transpose back into a queen's gambit declined. Alright, so Parham took, Magnus recaptured, bishop g5, c6, e3. And here black has some options. Generally, white, if given the opportunity, wants to go bishop d3 on the next move. So black could stop that with the move bishop f5. However, that has a drawback that here white can go queen f3, hit the bishop, and you get into this endgame where black has the bishop pair, but he also has weakened pawns. Which is why Magnus plays h6, bishop h4, and bishop b7, but now Parham can go bishop d3. Short castles and knight ge2. And generally, one of the problems for black in the queen's gambit decline is that it's difficult to find a good place for this bishop, right? I mean, you can no longer develop it to the f5 square. But here the main move for black is to move knight bd7 or rook e8. In general, white castles and then rook e8. And black has a lot of maneuvers, like knight e4 is a move, sometimes knight f8. But Magnus goes for a different idea. He goes knight to e8 and he offers the trade of bishops. Parham goes bishop g3 and now knight at d6 by Magnus. The knight is generally pretty well placed here. It can jump to c4 later. It also still has nice control over the e4 square. And so Parham goes castles, rook e8. Queen c2 and bishop f8. And actually, funnily enough, Magnus had this position before with the black pieces against Alexander Grischuk through a transposition. And in that game, Grischuk played the move bishop f4 and he followed it up with a quick f3, and then he put his rook on d1, trying to push for a quick e4. And this game was played at the World Rapid Championship in 2021, and that game ended in a draw. But Parham has a different idea. He goes rook a e1. And with this move, he also makes his intentions clear. He later on wants to go f3 and e4 as well. Magnus goes a5, knight f4, and knight a6. A nice plan, and I'm sure he had studied that game against Grischuk. Black is starting to move knight b4, so Parham goes a3. But here, Magnus made a bit of an odd decision. I was expecting him to play someone like bishop d7, and if white goes f3, then b5. And black seems to be doing alright in the complications after e4 and b4. And generally that's how you want to meet this move f3. Black generally wants to go b5 and create some counterplay on the queen side. Magnus goes queen f6. And with this move, I guess he wants to discourage the move e4 as well, because it's very often hanging. But actually Parham could have played it in this position, right? Creating tension in the center. Black can take on d4, but if white takes here, white is a little bit better because it's just more active. All his pieces are into the game. Black can also take on e4 and give white an isolated pawn on the d4 square, but white seems to be doing pretty well because he has so much activity. Let's say after bishop d7, something like rook e3. And one of black's problems is also this knight on a6, because if you go knight c7, you're always stepping into this discovery, and you cannot capture this pawn on d4 due to moves like rook d1, and you lose this bishop on d7. So it's a tough position, right? And if white gets another move, he's going to line up the rooks, and again, the black pieces are struggling to find good squares. But Parham played the move f3, b5 by Magnus. And again, you want to get the move e4 through, but then black can take this one over here. So Parham played the move bishop f2. But this has a drawback that you still cannot play e4, as it will hang this knight on f4. Now perhaps what he could have done as well is to move queen f2 to prepare this move. But after queen f2, you have to be ready to give up one of your bishops. But white seems to be doing alright here. Even though, again, it gets pretty complicated. Black goes b4, hits a knight, hits this one. You don't want to take, because then black takes with a knight, which is creating some counterplay. So, again, it's a very complicated position, and this is also what Magnus wants. We've only seen one pawn trade, all of the other pieces are still on the board, and he feels that in these types of positions, he can outplay his opponent. But alright, so bishop f2 by Parham, knight at c4 by Magnus, g3, defending this knight on f4. So now Parham is ready to go e4, and here, again, Magnus could have just brought his knight back into the game. White does get e4, but black just goes knight e6, hitting this knight over here. And even though white gets e5, it doesn't seem to be that worrisome for black, because I think it's difficult to get f4 through as well, and black is going to get b4 very quickly on the queen side, and black should have enough counterplay. But Magnus went queen to d8. Now e4 by Parham, and things are not that easy. If you take an e4, white recaptures, has a very nice center, can go e5 potentially, maybe knight e4. Also, this knight on c4 loses its stability, so Magnus played b4, hitting this knight on c3, and here things get pretty wild. Parham captures on d5, so he's removing the defender of the knight on c4. So if you take on c3, then white takes here, and white is just up a pawn and is just winning. So Magnus trades here first, and then goes knight to d6. And again, this knight is still under attack, but here white actually could have just sacrificed the knight on c3. Because if black doesn't do anything, white is going to go c4, c5, and d5. And again, one of black's problems is that this bishop is lacking a good square. Can I go to d7, cannot go to e6, can I go here, can I go here, and can I go here. And if you cannot get your bishop into the game, how are you going to get your rook into the game as well? But with that being said, things are still pretty unclear if black plays a move like knight e8, hitting this pawn over here, because if white gives it up, then black also gets the b4 square for his knight. So it's quite understandable that Parham did not want to go into this. And the move he plays is also very good. He plays the move knight a4. Now Magnus takes on d5, white recaptures, and here rook b8. So with the move rook b8, black prepares the move knight b5, hitting this knight on d5 and hitting this pawn on d4. And here, the best move according to the computer would have been the move rook e5. But to be honest, I kind of struggle to see the point of this move. I guess white defends this knight on d5 once more, and then continues with a move like knight to c5 later. Again, it seems a little bit odd to make a move like this if your knight is not under attack. But Parham played knight c5, also good. Knight b5 by Magnus, and here he should have played the move rook e5 again. Here it does make a little more sense because you defend this knight. And things are not easy for black. For example, if black takes his pawn on a3 after queen a4, he's just lost. This knight is under attack, rook e8 is coming in, and white's attack is just too strong. So you cannot do that. You also cannot play the move f6, hitting the rook and trying to move the defender of this knight on d5, because after bishop c4, black is all of a sudden just completely busted. Because this diagonal is opening up. If the king steps out of the way, there's knight f4, knight g6. And again, it's just over. Black's getting checkmated. So you cannot do that. Black can play the move bishop d6, hitting the rook. But here white can just go rook e4, defending this pawn over here. And black can never take this knight over here and take this knight, because white will have rook e8 checkmate, because the bishop controls this square. So rook e5 would have been a real chance for Parham, and Magnus would have been in real trouble. Perhaps he would have lost the game, who knows. But Parham gives up the bishop for the knight, and this feels like quite a serious concession. Magnus recaptures, and now queen c4. The rook drops back, and things are not that easy. If you take this knight over here, at the end of it all, your knight will be hanging on d5, and black seems to be doing completely fine, because this pawn on f3 is weak. White also has targets on the queen side, so black has more than enough compensation for the pawn. So Parham goes a4 to make sure that Magnus cannot take here. But here Magnus comes up with a very strong sequence. He takes on c5 and goes bishop b7, putting pressure on this knight on d5. If the knight were to move, then you hang this pawn over here. So you don't want to do that, because then also your king can come under pressure. And it's important to point out that the move bishop b6 looks very tempting. Right? You pin the knight to the queen, but here white sacrifices an exchange and goes knight f4. And white has one pawn, he's going to get another one. And also the c pawn is pretty strong, so here black would have still been in trouble. But again, the move bishop b7 is correct by Magnus. c6, and now another very important move, rook c8, pinning the pawn. Parham goes bishop b6, hitting the queen. Now black cannot take here, because white will take, and if you recapture, white takes here, and white is winning in the endgame. But Magnus plays the only move in the position. He goes queen to d6. And queen e6 is important, because if white were to take, you cannot queen, because the queen controls that square. And here Parham goes bishop c7, and here there's many ways for black to draw the game. Black can take here, for example, and if white takes here, white will get another queen in this open exchange, but black seems to be doing alright after a check, because the king is just too open, and black can pick up another pawn over here. Queen c6 is also fine, but Magnus goes queen c5 check, takes, king g2, and now takes this pawn. And here, white has to be a little bit careful. If white goes knight e7 here, black can take on a4. If you take over here, there's rook c2, check. Right, so this line would not have existed if the king was still on g1. And here again, white still needs to suffer a little bit for a draw because black takes here. And after rook e4, you win this pawn, but black goes bishop c6. And after takes, there's rook a2. And again, white should be able to draw this, but it does involve quite some suffering. Black is up a pawn here, and Magnus will definitely try to torture you here in this endgame. But Parham plays the correct move. He goes rook to c1, hitting the bishops along the diagonal, but Magnus just takes, and goes bishop b3, hitting this pawn over here. Parham goes bishop b6. The rooks get traded off. Magnus takes here, but now bishop b6. Magnus dropped the bishop back, and after Parham took, Magnus played b3 and offered him a draw because there's no way for either side to win this position. White can just put his bishop here, defend this, and opposite color bishop endgames are very often drawn because you cannot overcome your opponent's defense on the opposite color. So this game ends in a draw. Magnus still plays a very good tournament. If we have a look at the rating list, we see that he's gaining 3 points. Again, it's not easy being the world #1. He scores 5 points out of 6 games, all against Grandmasters, only getting 3 points, but still a very good result. And what's next for Magnus? Right, Magnus is actually playing in the next tournament of the Champions Chess Tour, which begins in 5 days. Now, as a side note, I believe Hans Niemann is also qualified to play in the tournament. We'll see if he will play because he's also playing in the US Championship. And yeah, we'll see what's going to happen. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.